Thanks very much. I was waiting for your signal. Welcome, everyone, and thank you all for joining this webinar, which is part of the World Bank Group's Data-Driven Digital Agricultural Webinar Series. In this series, we invite innovators, thought leaders, World Bank task team leaders, and partners who are transforming agriculture and food systems using data-driven and digital agriculture. At the World Bank Group, together with partners, many of whom I can see connected, welcome. We support our clients' efforts in bringing about transformation in food systems that need to focus on healthy planets, healthy people, and healthy economies. And the opportunity to discuss the role of data-driven digital innovations and approaches in doing so is very welcome. And we're in for a great conversation today in this webinar. Now, conversation is an exchange. So to this end, I encourage the participants to start asking questions in the chat box while the presentations are going on. Don't wait. Get your comments, questions, and ideas out there, as we will have a solid Q&A following the presentations. At the World Bank Group, we're committed to supporting Nepal's agricultural development strategy, the ADS, which provides a comprehensive roadmap for, in their own words, creating a sustainable, competitive, and inclusive agricultural sector that drives economic growth. And it recognizes the private sector as the principal actor in the sector's transformation, most numerous among which, of course, are farmers and then SMEs in the food system. So we all know that the sector is beset by a history of low and uneven growth, but it's also on the brink of a unique opportunity afforded by a rising demand in high-value agri-food products, both domestically and globally. Nepal is uniquely poised to take advantage of this opportunity due to its varied agroecology and the unique branding possibilities. And actually, Nepal's shift to federalism can further help the process for agricultural transformation, but improved access to quality service delivery at the provincial level is going to be a very important ingredient. Our two discussants today, Purna Chetri and Anupa Pant, can speak to the bank's portfolio of activities in Nepal, but it's important to speak also of Nepal's exciting and developing startup ecosystem for fintech and agtech innovations. There are currently 51 fintech startups in Nepal. And of the 60 other startups launched in 2019 in Nepal, more than 10 of them are working in the agriculture and food sector, probably because of that landscape of opportunity that I was speaking of just now. We're trying to learn from the homegrown innovations and startups and assess how we can work together to maybe come to scale through our investments in advisory technical assistance on ecosystem building. So let me begin then by introducing our guests of honor. GeoKrishi is one of the most promising of these startups from Nepal. GeoKrishi, for those of you who haven't had a chance to read up, it's a digital platform that connects the sharing of products and services between multiple actors of agri-value chains and its functionaries. So GeoKrishi was established in 2017 to try to close the gap between science and practice by applying simple, cost-effective technologies to strengthen the agricultural extension services that help farmers make good decisions. It won the U.S. Data-Driven Farming Prize, so it seems it's doing its job well. And we're privileged to have with us today Rajan Bhattacharya, founder of the GeoKrishi initiative in Nepal. He has a unique blend of engineering and management experience. Rajan has both a degree in computer science and engineering and geoinformatics, and then recently enrolled in a postgraduate in agricultural extension. And just sort of bringing all this together, he has worked as an international development professional for more than 12 years, mainly in the use of technologies to address environmental and livelihood challenges in the region. Efforts that benefit then from sort of a progressive experience of 18 years in data, information, and knowledge management. His contributions were valuable in mainstreaming many science-based decision support systems in the sector, like agriculture, climate monitoring, disaster management, etc. Rajan is not only the founder of GeoKrishi Initiative, but also the managing director and CEO of a private sector technology company, Pathway Technologies Limited. And he's also the chairperson of Digital Data System for Development, a non-governmental organization to democratize digital data infrastructure. And Rajan will be presenting alongside Swapnil Chaudhary, Director of Strategic Cooperation. Swapnil has over 12 years of experience in leading conservation and development programs in South Asia, in the Hindu Kush Himalaya, Africa, and Europe. He holds masters in ecology and an MPhil in conservation leadership. Over the years, he served in different capacities, local, regional, national, and international agencies working on climate change adaptation, biodiversity conservation, ecological agriculture, And recently, he was the regional program officer for a Kailash Sacred Transboundary Landscape Program, where he was instrumental in bringing policy and practice changes on managing the biodiversity in high altitude areas of the Himalayas. He's very well traveled. He's worked on everything from marine turtles to grassland birds of the Deccan Plateau. And in 2020, this year, this very memorable year, he established Resilience Environmental Solutions, RES, which is a consulting firm, strengthening the organizational capacities of nonprofits in South Asia. And here comes the work with GeoKrishi, where he's developing strategic cooperation and expanding their network of partners. Rajan, Swapnil, nobody's come here to hear me speak, that's for sure. So you have 35 minutes, and I want to turn it over to you. And let's get this discussion going. Thank you ever so much for joining.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for introduction. First of all, good morning and good afternoon to all the participants. And I would like to thank all the participants for accepting our invitation. And also would like to thank organizer World Bank for having us here. In today's webinar, we will be talking about how we can collaboratively revitalize agricultural extension system in Nepal case. I'll be giving a brief overview of the presentation and hand over to my colleague Swapnil later on. So to give you an overview in the context of Nepal agricultural extension system, which is considered as a public services, which adopt like kind of conventional approaches to advise farmer. In the present scenario, this public extension alone cannot meet the growing demand of the farmer. Hence, it is necessary to bring in the private player or relevant agency for this purpose. And in Nepal, we have like a new federal structure in place where 753 municipalities are responsible to provide extension services. However, these services centers are extremely inadequate, and in most of the cases, these centers are not functional very well. Having said that, their main tasks at present, when you go in the field and see that they are focused more in distribution of subsidies like seed and fertilizer rather than disseminating any extension services. There are like different other extension delivery model that has been piloted successfully, and it is well taken by a lot of farmer, but they were not sustainable, or the system were phased out after completion of the project. Development partner are also like other hand are introducing different approaches through private service provider, but these provider are not very much consistent in providing advisory services. Sometimes it is unintentional because they are not well equipped or they don't have very synthesized kind of content, and sometimes it is intentional as they want to sell more. Like for example, in case of agri-value, like they want to sell more, so unintentionally they are not giving the right information at the right time. In this context, today we will be presenting how we all stakeholders, including private, public, research and development institution, can work collaboratively to bundle and synthesize each other product and services, and to have a common digital agricultural platform that helps farmer to be competent decision maker. So the next slide. So with this motto in place, we are trying to strengthen and revitalize Nepal Agricultural Extension Service. We established, it was mentioned earlier as well, we established GeoKrishi in 2017, and we are also winner of US Data-Driven Farming Prize in 2017. And we also received a National Agriculture Research and Development Fund in 2018 by Government of Nepal. So with this seed fund, we are trying to establish digital agriculture ecosystem in Nepal and even beyond, where our partner institutions are supporting us to move forward. They are both from government organization at all level, at national level, at the provincial and municipal level, as well as development agency and other stakeholders are also supporting us to meet our target. With this brief introduction, I would like to hand over this presentation to my colleague Swapnil for the rest of the presentation. Thank you for listening to me. Over to you, Swapnil. We can't hear you, Swapnil.
Your mic is off, Swapnil. Please unmute.
Sorry for that technical glitch. Thanks, Rajan, and thanks, Lauren, for walking us through the introduction as well as setting up the tone for today's webinar. As Rajan was mentioning, GeoKrishi is Nepal's first integrated online platform, which is working towards provisioning of the agriculture advisory services to the farmers in Nepal. Moving forward, as Rajan has already mentioned about like the little context on of the Nepal's advisory services. But let's deep dive a little bit into what are the problems that the farmers are facing. Farmers in Nepal lack the access to information. Over the past 3 decades, there had been constant efforts in investing into the agriculture innovations across the entire country. But despite of that, per capita income of the farmers still stands at $1 to $3 a day. Most of the farmers are under the poverty bracket. This has also led to very less yield in terms of the agriculture productivity as compared to the adjoining countries of India, China, or even a little neighboring countries such as Bhutan and Bangladesh. This, coupled with the growing demand in the middle class of Nepal, has actually put quite a lot of pressure, and that has led to import of agriculture commodities. Just in year 2019, the total import of agriculture goods was in the tune of 243 million US dollar. Now, this growing middle class has actually have also increased their demands on like value-added products. But somehow our farmers from Nepal are not able to actually match these demands. And thus, Nepal has become a net food importer. Poor extension services. Recently, there were trials that were conducted in Nepal by CIMET, where the application of fertilizers to the maize crop, instead of in a single batch, if you divide that in 2 times, the productivity increases by 2,000 kilograms per hectare. Such simple technique is also not really known to nearly 50% of the farmers which are growing maize in entire country. So how can that be resolved? That is also another challenge. Then access to market and linkages with the market is in nearby areas. As you would know, like, majority of the farmers in region, they rely on the middle person because of the low surplus, high transportation cost, which and the low productivity that together makes them very difficult to sell their produce by themselves. So they are always relying on these middlemen. And this combined together has trapped them into poverty trap. Moving forward, we also run at GeoKrishi a call center. During the call center time, we were looking at what kind of inquiries do we get from the farmers. Pests and diseases were one among the top. 25% of the calls that we received in a year were mostly dedicated towards information that farmers were seeking in pests and diseases, followed with seasons and the varieties that they could plant. Equally important were the plant nutrition, which collectively are related with the input supplies. In the aftermath of the pandemic, Nepal underwent into a total lockdown across the country. During that time, our team mobilized a survey with over 1,000 farmers across Nepal. And we were trying to understand that what do they feel, what are going to be one of their immediate challenges, what will be their midterm challenges, and what would be, in hindsight, what will happen to their agriculture produce. Most of the farmers reported that they are not sure about whether advisory services and access to market will be actually provided during this lockdown time. So as you can see that the advisory is actually in demand from the farmer sides as well. To cumulatively think about that over the past 3 years, then we realized that if farmers are provided with the actionable advisory, if more effective techniques are promoted and their adoptions are assisted, if local extension service providers, which are also called as extension agents elsewhere, are provided and are new knowledge, new techniques, and how to access those knowledges, if market linkages are established, we believe that the farmers' productivity, income, resilience will be improved. That collectively will accelerate the growth of agriculture sector and modernization use of information technology into the entire segment. With that as a of change, our 3 pillars of work rest upon digital agriculture infrastructure and platform development, which is open, it's It's embedded through the open source technologies. Innovative tools and synthesized content delivered to the farmers by means of different media. These together as a pluralistic service delivery model. This is where the GeoKrishi is actually working on. Now, a little bit looking at the operational aspect, some element of that was actually mentioned by Lauren, and also Rajan mentioned that Nepal right now is going through a very interesting phase. Post-federalization and redistribution and like promulgation of the constitution, 753 local municipalities were suddenly in the ambit that they needed to be coming forward and provide these kind of services to the farmers. There are more than 30,000 cooperatives, government knowledge centers, government call centers, research and development organization, agro-weight and SMEs. These collectively are providing the extension services at present. Together, they are covering only 15% of the farmers. The ratio of extension agent to the farmer stands at 1:2,000, which is far, far stretched compared to 1:200. That is what is actually recommended for the South Asia region. To bridge this gap, what we believe is that like community-based agriculture advisory center can actually help to bridge this gap, bringing like more than like from 15% farmer to reaching to maximum extent to 60-75% farmers. This ratio of like extension to the farmers can also be bridged, and with the technology, actually a particular agent can reach up to like 200 to 400 farmers. What do you exactly advisory are required? Inputs, then like the information on what kind of plant to grow, where to grow, what kind of inputs will be required to maintain those plants, pests and disease, and access to the credit. Our system in the technological term works at the planning stage, the advisories, growing stage, and a post-harvesting stage. In planning stage, this is production plan is generated. Then we also look at the business plan, whether that production plan will fetch the adequate returns. Can we promote smart farming practices? In the safe food production, looking at like, the inherent challenges of climate change, biodiversity loss, can we, and also like, over increase use of chemical pesticides and fertilizer, can we actually start the Nepalese farmers to move towards a safer food production practices? Recommended engine, farm management and monitoring, and in post-harvesting, like collective marketing, collective buying, supply chain operations, and digital finance services. These bundled together, if put into the realm of digital technology, could actually help to increase the farmers' productivity and the profitability. I request some people are asking me to like annotate the presentation. Could you please like, it just like raises my computer screen. These were like the two realms of the presentation. One on the top is the operational aspect where GeoKrishi tries to hit. And second is the technological aspect, which is what I'm going to explain in two stages. The technological point, end-to-end technological solution, as we were mentioning before, is continuously evolving as the technology actually improves. More and more information, more and more data, artificial intelligence and machine learning actually then are embedded into the system so that the operations are scalable and the system becomes much more integrated, much more robust and much more holistic. To give you a brief idea about what is the engine and how exactly the GeoKrishi operates, we rely upon the remote sense product, GIS and satellite images, that based with the geophysical characteristic, soil characteristic, climatic, then the chart with the statistical data supplied through the crop calendar, agriculture content, demography, age, sex, and migration. Migration plays quite a crucial role in the context of Nepal, as many of my colleagues would know that feminization is fairly common. Then these are combined together with the municipal database that generates the baseline data, sectoral databases, spatial databases, farm management databases. That collectively gives us the crop suitability engine, which is run through the algorithms. Then it gives the recommendation what crop would be the better suitable, what are the marketing intelligence. That all things are put together in an open source platform using artificial intelligence and machine learning so that the algorithm is self-learning. Sensory technologies like a pH meter, soil testing kits, earth observation data, cloud computing, and blockchain. These entire these servers, and then it is provided to the farmers or to the agriculture extension providers in terms of the products and tools, which I'll be elaborating in a little bit. That essentially gives the information to the farmers what to grow, where, when, and how. This tool optimizes the input and also helps farmers at their own individual capacity how to manage their own farm better, and also be vigilant and be surveillant about all the unforeseen challenges that might come, together making them a better decision maker acting upon their own farm. Moving forward to the operational little bit on how exactly it operates. GeoKrishi is loaded on individual farmers' mobile app. At one point, it gives you, using all these geophysical, climatic, and economic parameter, it tells you what are the crops that are suitable into a particular locality. And then these crops, once you have got, they are then enabled through the agricultural advisory into different stages. We have so far 27 crops, and we are moving also into these 27 crops are connected with the vegetables, spices, cereal crops, and also the livestock. This sort of agriculture advisory, we want to further expand towards the agroforestry based produce, as Nepal's larger area also covers into the forestry realm, which is not under directly under the agricultural land use. Nepal being land-linked country, China and India are the nearest big markets once the surplus are higher. And then if the demand could be satisfied within the domestic markets, then there are potential to also look at the adjoining markets. The resulting benefits are evaluating crop suitability, accordingly make the plans. What are the competitive advantageous crops at a point location or at the community level or at the municipality or at the provincial level? And identify pocket areas where a systematic investment can be made for looking at the high value products or commodities. The products range from GeoKrishi Farm app, which is centered towards the farm, towards the farmer, individual farmer. They add their crop and also mention their transplanting date. GeoKrishi extension app is targeted towards the field agents or the extension service providers, which gives them a better handle to manage multiple farmers in their portfolio. Look at who has taken action over the recommendation and who has not, so that it helps them to follow up quickly so that they can reach maximum amount of farmers in a single time. The enterprise solution actually works at the municipal, cooperative, or a farmers based organization level, wherein collective data at the municipal or such a geographic unit can be imbibed into this system, where the entire data from individual farm to the collective farmers is actually controlled. And that helps you to predict how much would be a total production in that particular area, so that you can actually better control who do you want to sell it, gain a better bargaining power. The easy steps to advisory at the farmer level. Farmer takes the mobile app, opens it up, walks around their entire farm. That actually marks the total area. Then they enter the transplanting date in the second phase, after, of course, having created their profile. And then immediately the advisory starts to come in based on the transplanting date. The advisories are delivered in 6 stages. One is a planning, then nursery development, preparation of the farm, transplanting, managing the plant growth, and then the harvesting. These together then move on towards towards a market solution. We have got a website called Samuhik Bazaar, where all this information, buyers and sellers are able to communicate with each other, look at the historical trends in terms of how much was the value that was fetched before and what is the value that is going to be fetched now. Looking at the operational aspect, how do we exactly operate once we move to the field and once we start to interact with the farmers or the municipal corporation wards or the cooperatives? We go select the municipality, or they approach us, whoever wants to work and move towards the digital technology or making use of these digital solutions. We, together with those municipal corporation or the representative, develop the production plan, which is based on crop suitability model that was discussed before. Look at the comparatively advantageous crop. Again, looking at the market also as one of the factors, looking at the climate change also as one of the input. Then the project is launched together. After the project is launched, we give the orientation to the municipal field technicians, which are either sometime permanent staff, sometime a part-time staff. And then the farmer collectively, they all get the access to the apps and the Samoik Bazaar web content. We try to focus on lead farmers and then digital champions, as some of the participants who belongs to anthropology would know that like farmers listen to other farmers. So how do we exactly see that like one or two individual farmers, they take and they become a role model, they see the benefit, experience it, and showcase it to the larger people. Once the farmers have already to use this thing, if at all they run into any trouble, say example, there is any disease that is coming up on the plants, the farmers immediately reaches to the field technicians at the tier 1. These tier 1 people are already access to GeoKrishi extension app. If there is a disease and that is not really manageable, or they do not have information, it moves to the subject matter specialist, which we have as a pool of networks, mostly the agriculture specialist or the disease specialist. If they are able to solve, then the problem is solved and it is immediately communicated to farmers. At the same time, the tier 3 call service agents, they actually then inform to the larger pool of all the extension service provider that this disease has been found in this particular locality. Be aware, this disease might come and these are the potential solutions, how you can address that challenge. The key benefits at the farmer level: synthesized content at the fingertip, input recommendation that optimizes their input supplies and associated cost. It works in the offline, as you would know that the digital penetration and data is still at the nascent stage in Nepal, but it's constantly growing and exponentially. And we see that within 5 years, there will be quite a lot of new ventures, as was also mentioned by Lauren, which are moving into the rural areas. It's delivered in the local language, very important because most of the farmers are still struggling to understand the other languages. Automatic notification based on the transplanting date. Smart personalized alerts. These personalized alerts are specific to an individual farmer, and these specific alerts are also associated with a particular crop that they are planting. Weather information, market information, pest and disease management. Whenever a farmer clicks a photograph and sends it back through the mobile app, it actually combines together in artificial intelligence or machine learning algorithm. And then once we have a pool of these images, they actually tries to help us to predict how it is going to move in geography or in the adjoining areas. At the system level, what we are looking at that if we are infusing this information to the farmers, if climate smart agriculture information, which is being practiced in numerous development agencies program, that information can actually start to go into the farmers right now. Say food production practices at the nation level, at the community level, efficient farm management practices where the water is major shortage in some of the localities, how we can be much more efficient. Product diversification based on the crop suitability and comparative advantages. Monitoring and surveillance, both on the ground as well as through the remote sensing and satellite imageries. Credit scoring and risk minimization. This part I will describe a little bit when we move to the financial technology aspect. To realize this entire thing, as we were saying, we need quite a lot of grassroots level presence so that farmers can be reached. Not necessary that every farmer will be comfortable using the mobile app, or not sure they will all be using it. To substantiate see the convergence practices, like, the reports have showed that the potential of Nepal's agriculture sector is 1.4 billion year-on-year basis. Have we able to harness that much amount of things? Digital technologies are actually one such platform where all of us can actually connect. Those in educational institutions or those which are leading with the youth, there could be like upskilling support that can be provided, leadership, incubation, and accelerator, field exposure, which is extremely important. We need to hear more and more, actively listen to the farmers, what problem they are facing. User engagement, vocational training on learning materials, what kind of new materials can be actually provided to the youth. Synthesized content, R&D, and many organizations which are based out in Nepal or they are working in South Asia region. What we need to now really understand is that all the knowledge that we are producing, we need to make it accessible, make it more farmer-centric in terms of its illustration or in terms of the mode by which we are reaching to the farmers. Extensive service delivery, we need, as Rajan was also mentioning, government alone or the development agencies alone cannot actually reach to such a huge masses. Everybody is trying to work at the municipal level. Everybody knows that municipalities and municipal government needs this kind of capacities. The question is, how quickly can we actually move? How can we reach 753 municipality in a very shorter period of time? Mind it, because everybody actually is in urgent need, given all the pressures of climate change, water shortages, failures of the crop, the pest and diseases. So we need to actually join hands and develop public-private partnership model that can actually work to make sure that the sustainable extension services are enabled. Develop into standard operating procedures for where government of Nepal has already started to work. Access, credit, and SME development. The financial institutions need to come up and mobilize that capital, unlock it, and looking at what could be the credit that can be given to the SMEs or to the farmers. In that, in terms of the traceability, in terms of whether the farmers are using that money to the right purpose, and also if that money is actually helping them to increase their productivity, increase their market linkages. These are the sorts of things that we are actually looking at. Together, we feel like this bundle service delivery model and as an ecosystem has a chance for it to play revolutionize the agriculture sector of Nepal. How it actually hits the sustainable development goal. Goal 2, it doesn't really require much explanation. Of course, farmers and in women, they are all connected in context of the Nepal. Poverty alleviation, of course, education of the extension services provider. Goal 15, very important, ecosystem management, efficiency of the farmland. As we know, Nepal has nearly 40% of the landmass is under the forest. And we are seeing across the Himalayan belt, be it in Myanmar, all the way up to Afghanistan, human-wildlife interactions have increased a lot. That has also resulted, many people are saying that COVID originated from something similar. So how we exactly interplay that the needs of the nature as well as the needs of the farm and the farmers, they are not contested, they are not against cooperating and contributing towards each other. This sort of information, these sort of models can also be pushed through using these digital technologies. And of course, climate change. Again and again, I'm bringing back that topic because we have been seeing it on the ground, how dramatically it is changing the things. To take and sum it up, what would be from our side, what would be the take-home message that we want our audiences to actually take? For government colleagues, local, provincial, national government colleagues, they have a very critical role to play to mobilize and also actually promote and create an enabling environment that allows for this public-private partnership model to actually be established and actually strengthen the extension services that has already been there. We are looking at ballpark figure of somewhere around 7 to 8 million. If that is actually invested at party level by the government, bringing little hard infrastructure as well as the software and things like that, this actually can really accelerate the growth in agriculture sector. Research and development institution, as I was mentioning before, create, synthesize, be farmer-centric, and be make sure that you are innovating on how you are providing that information, what kind of medium you are using, what kind of languages, tones, what should be the frequency of that messages, what could be the standard that can go. Banking and financial and fintech institutions, access to credit, look at the risk management, look at risk minimization, etc. Of course, monitoring and traceability. Education institution, extension education, update your syllabus, make them the youth, ask them to go to the field, listen to them more. and look at the digital technology, how we can actually imbibe that as a part of the curricula. Farmer-based organization to minimize the crop damage and loss and bring science and digital technology to your operation at the municipality level. But also look at how collective efforts can be pushed together collectively, be at the cluster level, at the farmers organization level. If we can have and win as a collective effort, for a better bargaining power, collective buying, collective sellings. This was the summation of my presentation. I would like to acknowledge my team members who are all present there. Vikas, who is our Chief Technical Officer, Hari, who is a geospatial lead, Rajan, of course, Suraj, who is Director of Operation, Radip, leading fantastically our youth program. He himself comes from agriculture background, youth, and connecting and trying to bring this sort of motivation to the youth in Nepal. Myself, should you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Rajan's email ID is given at the bottom. These were some of our things that we wanted to actually exchange with the participant. Thanks so much. And now I think I give floor to Vivek or Lauren.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for this excellent presentation. You can see in the stream of comments and questions that have emerged in the chat how very interesting this is to the participants and to the work that we do. And before I introduce and invite the discussants to kick off our Q&A, I can knock off about 10 questions in the chat by just assuring participants that you all will get the presentations and the contact details, which are up on the screen right now, plus the recording from this session, as well as a curated version of the chat. So you will have all the resources and follow-up that you need following this. So allow me now to invite our two discussants from the World Bank Group team working in the sector in Nepal. I'll start with our colleague Purna Chetri, who's a senior agricultural specialist here at the bank. He's based in the Kathmandu office. Purna is currently involved in all our operations related to agriculture, irrigation, food security, and climate smart initiatives. And before he joined the bank, Purna worked for FAO in South Sudan, for the World Conservation Union in East Africa and South Asia, for CARE International in Sri Lanka, Nepal, and he led a multi-sectoral program in Afghanistan as the head of the Institution for Afghan Aid. So he holds a master's and a PhD degree from Michigan State University. Welcome, Purna. He is joined by Anupa Pant, who is a private sector specialist that works with us here at the World Bank, based in Washington, D.C. She brings over 17 years of experience in agribusiness entrepreneurship and innovation, including enterprise development, competitiveness, and digitization of value chains. I myself had a very positive working experience in a former role here at the bank with Anupa in really innovating around the bank's approach to entrepreneurship development. So thank you very much for joining us. That was actually the timer for the other speaker who did a great job. He didn't need it. Also a business educator. Anupa taught marketing at National Campus for Business Studies in Nepal. She is a graduate of the Masters of Science and Information from Central Michigan University. So I'm just realizing now there's some kind of Michigan thing happening here. And the Masters in Business Administration from Kathmandu University. So Purna, Anupa, over to you to kick us off. And what is I could see is going to be a very stimulating discussion. You have 5 minutes each. Purna?
Thank you very much, Lorraine, for this wonderful opportunity. And thanks to GeoKrishi for a fantastic presentation. I was really thrilled, it was very interesting. Since I have 5 minutes, I'd rather keep my, discussion short. GeoKrishi has rightly identified the problem of agricultural production in Nepal. If I'm asked, the weakest weakest element that we have in Nepal is the extension and outreach services, and mainly because of logistical challenges, we can't go to where we want to go, and then we have lack of qualified human resources, and then the lack of access to finance, which they have done very correctly, and then now we are being burdened by the impacts of climate change. In this context, I think the idea, the technology, the innovation, the thinking that GeoTech has put together in advancing this technology is going to do a great favor in terms of providing services to hundreds of thousands of farmers who are so far away from technology and development in Nepal. This is very, 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 very important and interesting. And also within the context of federalization, we are always being, requested by the client, the government of Nepal, for two major things. One is building the capacity of the institution, the sector as a whole, wherever possible. And second is not to disrupt the, service delivery during this very important transition. I don't know how long it's going to last. So in this context, again, the effort put in by, the innovation put in by the geotech is very, very timely and relevant. Now, the government is actually, has a plan, very ambitious plan of doubling agricultural production in the next 10 years. This is very, very ambitious, as I said earlier, without really bringing in transformation in extension services. I don't think we are going to be able to achieve that. So that is very, very important. We need services, that are inclusive, like our GeoKrishi colleagues have said, and make it more holistic in order to include the various, actors that are involved in agriculture value chain. But having said this, I also have, some suggestions or questions that I want to, propose or, bring to your notice. One is Nepal is small, but it's very, very, diverse in terms of topography, ecology, even in terms of farming system. Within that variation, we know that one system doesn't fit all in agriculture. How are we going to ensure, what measures are going to be taken in order to address this? In other words, what is our recommendation domain going to be? That's one thing. And then the important thing over here is the data and information, because this is a system-based, service to the, nation, to the farmers, to the people. And then the credibility and quality of information and technology that we're going to provide through this system is going to be extremely important. And by using a system like this, we're also cutting the costs in terms of there's no transition costs involved. The efficiency of extension services becomes much more affordable. So my greatest concern is on credibility of the data, reliability of the data. I remember, me being involved in a decision support system project a long time ago with EC board in Nepal, Pakistan, and Tibet, China. We had this problem of actually, getting the quality and credible data. This is going to be very, very important. And you also mentioned rightly about, the linkages with collaboration with the knowledge centers, the government-run knowledge centers. And this is also going to be very important because as we go along, I think geotech has to work in partnership with the government. One doesn't replace the other. And since most farmers are oral in Nepal, how are you going to actually, your messaging is also going to be very, very important to make sure that the intended readers or users of the information services are actually able to comprehend the knowledge that they would get from the services of geotech. And of course, there's an assumption that, all other factors of production are available. So, if information like this, service like this is going to be very helpful when all other factors are also there. I know it's not in the hands of geotech alone in order to provide all these things, solve the problems. You are a great step forward in order to advance or transform extension system in the country. So I'm not hoping too much, but it's a very good and fantastic start. Last but not least, what kind of feedback mechanism do you have in place in order to also get the information of the rural farmers so that you keep on improving your services and make it more tailor-made? I think I've said enough. I'll now hand over the mic to Lorraine. Thank you once again. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Purna. So before I turn to our guests to respond to some of these issues on quality of data, on messaging, outreach, and the feedback mechanism that Purna has put on the table, let me just quickly turn to Anupa. Anupa, you have 5 minutes. Over to you.
Lorraine, thank you, GeoKrishi, for a great presentation. And it's not only in Nepal, but in many developing countries, there is a limited contact between traditional industries like agribusiness and technology-enabled startups like yours And it's a missed opportunity for both sides. And how do we make this connection? And this is a question that us policymakers have been struggling with for a long time. And it's always so refreshing to hear directly from entrepreneurs like yours who's made this connection possible. So I listened with really, really great interest on how you have promoted this technology adoption among farmers for productivity gain and market access. This is a difficult time. We're all going through this unprecedented time. The world is forced into going online. We're on a virtual meeting right now. Our kids are going to online classes. Firms are converting from offline to online. So this whole social distancing has fast-tracked the need for accelerating digitization, not only for market access, but also for education. And as you rightly pointed out, more so for extension services to farmers. Your survey confirms that. And to support this agenda, it requires strengthening of the entire entrepreneurship ecosystem for entrepreneurs like yours, for technology-enabled startups like yours to create solutions that actually matches the needs of the traditional industries, needs of the farmers. And these startups like yours, they're more likely to succeed when the entire entrepreneurship ecosystem come together and is strengthened. And I believe in Nepal, 90% of the startups fail. So there's clearly a big fish to fry from the policy institutions perspective. And what we're doing so far is we're kind of like putting our effort in building this entire entrepreneurship ecosystem, and we look at different elements. And you have touched upon a few of those. So let me just kind of like, go over the elements and kind of like explain to you how the policymakers like us look at the entrepreneurship ecosystem. The first one is the policy framework. Are there right policies in place to encourage digital entrepreneurship? So in Nepal, Ministry of Communication and Information Technology has released 2019 Nepal Digital Framework. And one of the objectives is to focus on entrepreneurship development. Ministry of Industry had also prepared initial draft of startup policy 2017. So there are efforts from the government side on entrepreneurship development, but we do know that Nepali entrepreneurs are still facing policy barriers. For example, startups like Tutul and Patao face several regulatory challenges in Nepal with regards to sharing economy, and you must have encountered some, and would be great to hear from you on your first-hand experience on that. The second one is access to finance. There are a number of risk capital providers such as venture capital fund, angel investors, and they have increased over the past few years. And some examples are Business Oxygen, One to Watch, Dolma Fund, and there are more than 200 angel investors in Nepal. IHC has $15 million dedicated towards SME finance. Government of Nepal has asked the financial institution to set aside 10% for SMEs and farmers. But these investors, when we talk to them, they do face challenges in terms of sourcing a viable pipeline of startups like yours to meet the funding requirement. So there are opportunities and gap on both sides in terms of access to finance. And would be great to hear from you in terms of your interaction with these different finance providers in terms of increasing your investment, seed capital, or growth. The next element is the business support services, like who's doing what in the ecosystem, what are their strengths, weaknesses of intermediary institutions like incubators, accelerators, tech hubs. And at present, there are several in Nepal, like Rockstart Impact, One to Watch, Nabik, Entrepreneur. And we did, from the World Bank side, we did conduct a survey. And one thing that came up very loud and clear was there is a clear gap in the connection between the target entrepreneurs and these ecosystem providers. And only 3% of the surveyed firm actually said that they have access to some kind of business development services. And from your side, it will be great to hear whether you were able to get that kind of service or not in terms of your growth journey. The other aspect is market. There is a very low penetration of digital technologies in traditional sectors like agribusiness. You've done a great job in bringing that connection. This is clearly limiting the B2B market in Nepal. You know, in terms of your market, it's farmers. So is there willingness or ability of the farmers to pay for these services? And I understand from your presentation, there is a lot of like back-end investment required for your business. And also like, you know, you would need people on the ground. So there's huge investment. So are the farmers able or willing to pay for that service? Are there other revenue models? You know, globally, startups like yours have partnered with large off-takers, large input suppliers like Olam, and then they do, there is a cost sharing also with, you know, mobile operators like Encel. So that kind of revenue model, have you looked into? That's another aspect. Would like to hear from you. In terms of entrepreneurship culture, it's pretty favorable in Nepal. I hope you agree with me on that. There are several role models like yourself. Labor force is young. And the culture is really coming up with a lot of like TV programs and organizations supporting entrepreneurship. And the last one is the skills. You did touch upon it a little bit. And when I say digital skills, it's not only technology skills, but also business skills to build and run startups. So that kind of skills, whether, you know, is kind of like there are providers, but they're concentrated in Kathmandu area. And if you look at the government policy, Nepal strives to include technology skills in the existing education system. There is a target of 75% digital literacy by 2020. Where are we on that? There are infrastructure barriers for it. So that's you know, and from an entrepreneur's perspective, are you able to hire skilled workforce to run your innovative business? So, you know, with all these different elements put together, then only we would have more startups like yours. And it would be great to hear your entrepreneurship journey and how you encountered with all the opportunities and challenges facing these different elements. And this would be inspirational to many entrepreneurs who have joined this WebEx, but as well, it will be very useful for us, you know, World Bank and also government policymakers in terms of designing projects that actually, you know, meet the needs of entrepreneurs like yours. And I say this because, as Lauren mentioned in the beginning, there is a new project coming up in Nepal with Ministry of Agriculture. It's called Rural Economic and Enterprise Development Project. And the project aims to build linkages between farmers and large institutional buyers. But then there is this technology adoption component where the project would work with startup ecosystem and help entrepreneurs like yours to connect and provide services on linking farmers to institutional buyers. So that's it from my side, and congratulations. That was very interesting presentation.
Thank you so much, Purna Anupa. Many thanks indeed for kicking us off so comprehensively. And as you answer, as you respond to the discussants, I can see that we can actually incorporate in your response a number of questions that have come from the chat as well. So as you get back to Purna on quality of the data, for example, we had a number of questions on, you know, under the climate data that you're using. How are you accounting climate-induced hazards in these areas? There was a response from in the chat on the drought index, but you may want to, as you respond to Purna on the quality of data, sort of sweep that up as well. There was a question also on the granularity of the data, at what scale the data is being collected to ensure field level specificity. So I will just turn it over to you to respond to our discussants, and then we will share with you sort of groups or buckets of the questions that have come through the chat. So over to you. You are muted.
Yeah, so Bill, maybe you can start. I was very much focused on responding to chat.
Responding to things.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I'll add on like whatever you like.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Poorna and Anpa. That was a really good sets of questions and also great observations that you have shared. Some of the observations we also shared, like, what you have actually pinpointed. And those are the risks that we have tried to internalize as we are moving forward. I did not read through the questions that are there in the chat box. I think Rajan and our team are making justice with that, like, responding to the questions. But when it comes to what, Poorna, you were mentioning and what Anpa have tried to broadly reach and touch base upon all those things. Credibility of data and the information. Most of the data that goes into our engine is actually curated and it's also validated at the beginning. We look at what is the credibility in terms of what is the, how strong is the evidence when it goes into the advisory. Are there field trials being done? Are there not? And this is a serious challenge. You rightly pointed out, that like that kind of field trial evidence-based thorough evidence and a trail of those evidences, looking at their reliability. That sort of data we actually lack. But what is our a little bit of like, to say like what we feel anxious about is that whatever information we have so far, which is good, which has a great evidence to support, that also is not going to the farmers. At least we can start with that information, and related with like, some of these like 15 crops, which are like produced and are being used by nearly 70% of the farmers, we can actually utilize fairly good quality information, credible sources. There were also questions written regarding the literacy and like, data accessibility and things like that. I think we understand and we have been now communicating with the farmers. As our solution also works at the offline, the digital connectivity is whether it is available or not available. Sometimes it also goes through the push messages. But as an e-platform, it's also established at the ward level. And there is like, soft, like hard structures like screen where you telecast all this kind of thing weekly so that information is available, whether you have data connection or not have that data connection. One particular field agent can travel up to a place, go update that all information, go back to the field, disseminate it. This in terms of like, when the digital connectivity doesn't really exist. But looking at the numbers and how the entire IT and communication technologies are actually trying to push towards the rural areas, we feel fairly promising that like, the future looks like we are soon going to overcome that sort of like, hurdles. Feedback mechanism, excellent point. Our channel is actually two-way communication. Farmers interact through the field agent, sometimes directly through the mobile app, and gives us the recommendation. Our call center actually retrieves that data, whether that problem was solved or not solved. And that interaction is actually two-way. We are very heavy on actively listening to the farmers. We are very heavy on diagnostic. We want to actually understand what are their problems rather than being completely top-down. So there is that feedback mechanism and constant evolution. Earlier, our engines were like so heavy. We have chuck off like quite a lot of things which were redundant and that farmer didn't really need it with their basic logic and reasoning to solve it. So those all sorts of things has been clean, and like the entire algorithms and the model and the medium has been made like thin and clean. Technology outreach, how we are going to the farmers. This, as I was mentioning, like, through the field agents who directly interfacing with the cooperatives, then cooperatives actually interact with the farmers. We are not directly reaching to the farmers until unless, of course, like we have not started yet to advertise our mobile app full throttle by different means of things. Already there are like, quite interesting leads we are getting from the municipalities. As I was showing, like, what is our current holding in terms of the membership base. You were absolutely again right about like we all need to work at the entire ecosystem level. Both Anupa and Purna, both of you mentioned, and this is where we actually are looking forward to partnering with organizations, with whom in principles we have an agreement that our role, our social entrepreneurs venture, are actually have parallels with what you are actually trying to achieve. And on that ecosystem, most of our algorithms and our entire systems are on open source platform. We have kept the API open so that it is interoperable. You put the stack onto your system and move forward, develop your own solutions based on that thing. So that over the longer period of time, we get this interoperability, be it the government services or private services, they will be able to communicate and integrate their own innovations to each other so that the farmers is not really bombarded with new systems every now and then. On Purna's very, very thorough observation, nearly 7 points. I would just briefly touch base upon that. On policy, if at all any challenges that we face, I think these are the things that Rajan would be able to tell in terms of also access to finance. I already mentioned about digital connectivity, willingness of farmers to pay. As I was mentioning before, right now all our mobile apps are free. The premium packages are also essentially going to be extremely cheap. We ran an experiment with the farmers back in 2018, where we were asking them what would be the fair price that you would be willing to pay to get them access to this information. Farmers bet their price. They said somewhere around $8 to $15 a year. That would be something that we are happy to pay if we are getting this kind of information. And this is where our actually subscription model sits around. But that's not our really heavy thing. What is more important for us that we need to reach as many farmers as quick as possible. Our engines are ready, and scalability is where we are looking at. And in that, municipal corporations have a role to play, that if they enable that system through their own pots, it will be far more easier for us to actually move to that scale target that we were talking about. Skills for businesses. Our incubation program actually is part of this. Our inherent underline, our own team has MBA graduates. 3 of our members are qualified. I myself have done the things. So that a level of the business literacy exists within our team. But when it comes to actually the service agents, the field extension agents, our incubation program, the last phase of that incubation program actually starts with the second phase itself. It's quite heavy on business literacy and how do we exactly do that thing. So we bring about we bring the motivational speaker, sometimes also the people who can be the mentor for our youth to provide this kind of information. At present, we are just dealing right now with the 12. Next year, we plan on to moving towards 100 youth. And once this digital content in terms of the delivery of this incubation program, once it is digital, then I think we will be able to reach the masses and then fix up one youth to the other mentors or the pool of youth towards one mentor. Revenue model from other agencies. Right now, we are still in the exploratory phase in terms of looking at the other revenue model, which one we feel constant. I think our primary target right now is to maximize our user base. We want to reach to as many farmers as possible, as quick as possible. And that is where our efforts are much more focused right now. But on the front end and the back end, the engines are ready, and so are the dashboards that can be given to the municipalities with, of course, their login credential, things like that. These were some of my submissions and responses to Purna and Anupa, your observations. Rajan, if you would like to add something on it. Thanks.
Yeah, you were mentioning about the framework, right? So basically, we are trying to
with ongoing initiatives. The second set, which you've partially answered already, is on cost to the farmer. Affordability, but particularly for smallholders, and how this is back to a little bit Anupa's question, your response to it, how you monetize the application, and how you finance basically the solution so that it is viable on the long term. The third set of questions, it relates to the availability of many other apps, but the struggles they've been having in keeping themselves updated, basically. And part of this had to do with low utilization, et cetera. So maybe just some views you may have on that and similar challenges. The fourth set of issues relates to how non-collateral based credit and financial service can be developed. You know, you've already touched on some elements of that again in your response, but if you would like to say further. And finally, how are you looking at the impact on farmers? There was a question on sort of including some information in the presentation about the success of the pilots. You know, this has been a few years in the running. What can we say about the impact on those farmers, including on behavioral change? I think you made an interesting comment there about the anthropology of this kind of work. So those are the 5 areas. If you want to take them on, we can then maybe have time for sort of a last round of sweep up questions. Over to you then.
Rajan, do you want to take first 2 and then I'll take the other 2 and then perhaps like that way?
Yeah. Sorry, I was not listening very. So Swapnil, yeah, maybe you could start and then. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. How do we source the data? That's the question. In terms of official data, it's mostly free, available on the platforms. Those kind of information can be accessed and can be provided. In terms of the knowledge products, like in terms of the synthesis information, this is coming through 2 sources. One is the published literature, and second is like Government of Nepal's own agriculture advisories. That has now then been like curated, customized, illustrated, and made it into a much more accessible information. How you link with the ongoing programs. So in terms of these, like, if you look at the website, you would see like, the partnership ranges from the government, development agencies, also some of the startups which are working at like a very specific crop like strawberry, tomato. They themselves are like, bringing their own farmer, and they are jointly helping us to develop that content. That this is our experience. We trial, we see that like multiple farmers use this technology and it helps. And if you could actually push that knowledge through your platform, this is one way to do that thing. That also validates the thing, and what like Puna was also mentioning before, what is a feedback loop that we are talking about. How do you finance the system, whether it's affordable to the farmers or not affordable to the farmers? On that, I had mentioned before, like, the affordability, like what farmers were willing to pay for something like this as a service. By the way, at present, this entire app is actually free. And in the premium packages only, we are talking about like, that it is available at cost. And that cost will be based on like, commercial farmers or like a slightly larger, bigger landholding farmers. But for a small landhold farmers, whatever exists as a free is also quite heavy, and it's also quite available and something that they can actually make utilize of. Money doesn't really restrict the farmers from utilizing this app. What comes in a premium services are like, that they get access to like, we check up on them and things like that. Those packages are yet to get defined that way. And in terms of the system, like, financing the system, as I was mentioning again, that based on our from 2017 to present, we underwent nearly 21 projects. We went step by step, moving from one version to another. And during that time, we were jointly working with the development agencies, we were working with the government, we were working with some of the farmers' cooperatives. And like some elements of that actually engine or the entire system start to evolve. What was needed then was to actually bundle it together and joint it together. To do that thing, as Rajan was mentioning, what we needed was like a mid-level software engineers. But what we actually needed to talk with our team was to actually give them a vision as to where we are leading, why we are doing it. In that also, like, the subsequent question that you were mentioning, that many apps and many such similar platform actually exist, but they are not able to keep it up. And like, how do you exactly make the system updates and things like that? I think again and again, I would say that we need to hear more and more to our audiences, to our customers, which are our farmers. And once you actually listen and see what kind of information they need, it channelizes your energy, channelizes your resources, and that might also actually helps you to keep certain part of your system far more upgraded as compared to the other things. We are also evolving. We do not know, like, which segments will in future become even more powerful compared to the other things. So those will be very interesting things that we are looking forward to as the journey of GeoKrishi moves forward. How are we looking at the impact? Very interesting question. So far, like, based on our sort of the interaction with the farmers, we are looking at like the technology adoption as one of the strong point. We have a closing ratio of almost 0. Any person or any cooperative or farmer-based organization we are talking with, they're convinced, and they are actually wanting to utilize and deploy this technology at their place. So in terms of like the impact per se directly on the crop productivity, how farmers' profitability, it will come. But those kind of arithmetics, those kind of variables needs to be collected and collated properly over a period of time. And at this particular stage, we are not yet there to credibly say that this is what is going to happen. But as I was mentioning, if we are going to take as a proxy in terms of like how people are actually adapting, look at the Nepal, like, we just do not have any digital platform for farmers, neither for the municipal corporations nor for the farmers-based organization. So even accessing that kind of information, that platform can be utilized for other purposes also. The physical structure that you put on the ground, like a e-Chautari in India or e-Chautari, this is what we are calling in Nepal, that can be utilized for multiple purposes. So these are the sorts of like, parallel benefits that we are looking at. As I was saying, like, the feedback loop comes through, and some of the target, like as we move for the 3-year target or even in the next year, we are going to follow through quite a lot of evaluation metrics, key performance indicators, where like farmers' profitability, the productivity of the land before and after, those sort of measures are there. And that data is what we are actually planning to record and then analyze and see what system changes we need to bring in, what kind of information or advisory was crucial, was not so great, or things like that. These were some of my submissions to the question that you had put. If Raj, you would like to add something.
Yeah, I see like there are a lot of questions coming up, in terms of poor connectivity, because there is issues on digital literacy as well as poor connectivity, and there we are like promoting e-Chautari. So Chautari in Nepali means the meeting place in the village. So we are trying to establish those e-Chautari, working together with the progressive farmer, lead farmer, and the digital champion. And then people, the farmer then can go in that eChautari to get access to information, or they can download the app or update the app, or they can send the, take a pictures and send their issues to us. And that's how we are working together with at that level where connectivity is not very good. So that is one part that I'd like to add on, because we haven't mentioned that part in any of our slides earlier. So that is one. Yeah.
Just quickly to build on what Rajan was saying, I think a mobile app is not the only way to reach to the farmers. What we are talking about as the incubation program or the local field agents, they are the most weak and also the strongest link with the farmers. And this is where we are actually focused on, that we want to train them, we want to give them that access. And if like, any person with say a graduate or undergraduate degree in agriculture, or anybody who actually knows how to run Facebook or WhatsApp would be able to utilize our system. It is that simple. And these people have a mobility. So even if there is a problem with the accessibility in terms of digital connectivity, these people can actually help them to update their systems. but also just to follow. These sort of techniques and mechanisms are not really that difficult. Even if you actually congregate all the farmers into a particular eChautari once a week, and then tell them that what are these crops for tomato, for cabbage, or for maize. These are the things that we need to do over 1 month's time. I think that also level of information, if the field trainers or the field agents are trained well, can actually have quite a lot of impact rather than just relying on the mobile app.
Thank you very much. And Rajan, thank you for adding that at the end. I see that we have about 7 minutes left, and I would very happily sacrifice my concluding remarks to take on a couple of these two-hander and remaining questions, because it's guaranteed that the response to those questions is going to be more interesting than anything I have to say. So why don't I attempt to send 2 more your way so we can use the time that way. One is short and sweet. Does GeoKrishi cater to livestock farmers? And the other one is actually a set, another bucket of questions on how you are working with the private sector and other SMEs, including that you've discussed your approach on using agri-entrepreneurs as a last mile, et cetera. Linking a little bit back also to what Anupa was asking about the sort of ecosystem in which you operate. So livestock and your fellow private sector and SME entities. Over to you.
Rajan, you want to take?
Yeah. In case of livestock, we are working especially on goat value chain and also on cow. We also have developed different value addition tools such as feed calculator that actually support the farmer to increase the productivity of milk. We have also deployed our system that is artificial insemination tracking system to the government of Nepal, and they are actually running that system. So under livestock, we have in our next version, we'll be launching that livestock component within our app as well. Yeah.
And then the second question, Rajan, on the SMEs, our field agent and how we are moving towards making a self-sustainable at that node, making their business ventures.
Yeah, so from SMEs side, we are focusing on skilling up their existing capability. For example, they might not be understanding business literacy part, or they might not be able to develop any proposal, bankable kind of proposal. So we are helping, assisting at a very minimal stage at the moment because we are trying more with the farmer, not very much focused with the SMEs. But with our new program Skill Up Next, where we are also trying to create those kind of SMEs. So yeah, we are actually working towards that in our next coming years, mostly on working with SMEs. And we are also very much excited by talking with the commercial bank, because they are giving subsidies loan to the farmer. And we are trying to bundle that, their service charges as to the farmer loan borrower. Bank actually provide service charges. So within that, we are also trying to see the revenue model, how we can additionally provide advisories so that their crop failure risk is minimized and they can pay the loan or interest in a timely manner. So in that context, we are a little bit trying to connect those dots in the coming days. Yeah.
And just quickly to add on to what Rajan just mentioned, in terms of the SMEs that we are looking at, or the one which we are actually interested, which we want to back, are what are the issues of the farmers at the local level? Can you actually make a viable business proposition out of those issues? And these issues more or less are similar pan Nepal. Like one, for example, that we are working with that I would like to explain is tomato. There is a constant growing demand of tomato, and we always have to import it from Indian side. Now, these it's only because there is one this particular disease that comes onto the tomato that is infested into the Nepal's agriculture field. And if you get a grafted tomato, which is put up with a brinjal stock, and then you grow that tomato, and then you generate that into the nursery and sell it off. It's a viable proposition. And these are the sorts of small businesses ideas, which is there is a local demand and there's a local supply. These are the sorts of institution that we would like to work. These are they are solving the issues of the farmers. So all the SMEs that we would like to involve with are should have at least some degree of connectivity with what are the farmers' issue.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm informed by the organizers that we have a few more minutes. So let me just throw another two at you. I hope you're not exhausted by our interest. As you can see, that's a sign of your success.
Actually, there are so many questions. You might want to actually copy them, send it to us so that when it goes on the web, we are able to respond properly.
Indeed. As I mentioned, and that's also a good thing to remind folks as we're nearing the end, all participants will get both the presentation and the recordings, but also a curated version of the chat, which sort of has these questions, the buckets, and the individuals. So Swapnil, you'll be able to sort of respond to that as well. Maybe just as we wrap up here, a couple of forward-looking questions, I believe, from one of our colleagues is how you can work, how you see your work with partners. You mentioned it very briefly in one of your answer on partner organizations like the World Bank, but others. There are many actually who connected here today. How you see the opportunities, where the support is most valuable, et cetera, working with various partners who are in the same field within Nepal. Why don't we, since that's a forward-looking question, why don't we conclude on that question? Then I'd like to turn it over excuse me. I'd like to turn it over to Parmesh, sort of give a few words and a perspective from the view of the organizers. So in a forward-looking partnership kind of answer, Rashan and Swapnil, we turn to you, and then Parmesh, I'm coming your way. Over.
Rajan?
Yeah, Swapnil, go ahead.
All right. Yeah, in terms of the partnership, moving forward, what we're looking at, we would be very interested to work with people at two levels. One is if there are any good evidences that they can actually generate that has actually helped the farmers, that kind of knowledge we would like to really take and make sure that it is reaching to even more larger number of farmers. Second thing is we are interested to also make sure that our solutions are reaching to many more farmers. So organizations which are directly working with the farmers in Nepal or in adjoining countries, be it in India or up to Myanmar in the Himalayan context, this is where also one of our prime focus area is. The base technology exists. Feel free to get in touch with us. We can replicate it, augment it to suit to your needs. But if you are reaching and if your solutions are planning to reach to the smallholders and there are promising benefits for the smallholders, these are the sorts of filters that we use when we are actually looking at the partnerships development. And these are the partnerships which are growth partnerships. So we want equal level of participation from that angle as well. That how we are going, and not only just sort of one-off thing. These are some of the forward-looking partnership that we are open to discuss.
Yeah, just to add on to that, we are also partnering with different research institutions like NARC, for example, in case of Nepal. They are the content contributor because we are not doing a lot of researches. So we need to partner with the content contributors. Like for example, CMEET, CMOD, Hyper International, they've been generating a lot of knowledge, product, and content, and that has to be simplified so that the farmer can really consume it easily. So that part of partnership is also there. Another opportunity that we see in the partnership is that in this new federal structure that we have already mentioned, that 753 municipalities are responsible to provide extension services. So we are looking forward to have such kind of partnership with the local government, with the provincial government. So we are looking very much forward, and also have already piloted a lot of our services along that line. And another opportunity and another partnership that we are trying to build is with the cooperatives, farmer cooperatives. There are more than like 30,000 plus cooperatives, but not all of them are very much active or been providing, extension kind of services. And we see our role there as well in that partnership. And development partner, as I've been mentioning all the time, most of the development work, all those systems are not very much sustainable. All those systems phases out after completion of the project, and there where we would like to pitch in and see the other business proposition, and then carry on with that work that development partners is actually putting forward. So that sort of partnership that we are trying to build, and that's the reason why we've been able to partner with so many different organizations in Nepal. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Rajan. I would like to turn this over to Parmesh and maybe invite you to just make a few comments, Parmesh, to wrap us up here before we say goodbye and thank you. Over to you, Parmesh.
Thanks a lot, Lorraine, and thanks a lot for ably chairing today's session. And it's very lively kind of thing. I've seen proliferation of questions even till the end. So the dialogue is going on quite well. And thanks, Rajan and Swapnil, for really making a very good presentation, which has provoked a lot of questions. So two observations I would like to make here is that I think you are going through the same kind of pangs which the startups have gone through initially. But the question is from the very beginning to have a perspective of working with the business side of it. No startup becomes viable unless you become part of the transactions. So like input companies get linked on your platform and these inputs start getting sold and the startup gets a share of those inputs. Similarly, the market, the marketing transactions, you get a share of that. The bank makes loans, you get a share of that. That's the only way you will get viable. If you keep on going to development agencies and go there, then there's a limit to what you can do with that approach because the funding will dry up. So I would like you to think through on how you will work, and we will give you we will link you up with others who have developed those business models. And our role is to really link you with the other startups, who have developed those kinds of business models in other countries. And so that, you can develop a good business model out of that. Second is an issue on the data side. I think you have to develop a partnership with the key data providers in the country and outside. And there's a lot of satellite data, remote sensing data, which is coming in, which is available free. But the more important thing is how do you develop analytics out of that on a regular basis so that you can do that. And so I think the data part is also something which I think you have to build a kind of partnership with national research and other people to do that. I like what you are doing with municipalities there, because I think we have a program in Kenya which works with all the counties, and each county governor now has an agribusiness innovation kind of cell in each of the counties. And that has led to almost like a huge amount of public and private investment coming in there. So we would link you up with those programs which have been working with local governments and done that. And finally, I think you have to work with a financial institution, because if data ultimately has to get monetized in order to develop a credit score for all the farmers you have. If you are not able to develop a credit score, then these people will continue to be dependent on very traditional collateral-based models. So the finance is a very important part. So I think we would like to chat with you at some other stage to work with you, to link you up with other things which are happening so that you can build this as you go along. But finally, please approach Purna and the World Bank. We have new projects coming up. So what is the kind of value proposition you're going to offer to that project? Something I would encourage our own team and you to discuss, and then come with some kind of a thing so that we can have some kind of a component there where we can test things out a little bit, because I think we need a testing out a little bit, and then probably we can look at scale after that. But thanks a lot to everyone, all the participants, to staying till late. Thanks to Lorraine and Purna and Anupa to really have very thought-provoking questions and discussions, and finally to Rajan and Swapnil. Thank you. Look forward to the next session. Please keep on looking our next in the series. It's going to be on the women startup founders. It will be an all-woman panel, and we will talk with 4 most dynamic edtech startup CEOs, which are really focused on dealing with women farmers all over the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And on that promotional note, let me just also join my word of thanks to Rajan, to Swapnil, the entire team at GeoKrishi for sharing your approach and activities with us. And thank you again to our discussants, Purna and Anupa, but also Parmesh, to the World Bank's data-driven digital agricultural webinar series, which all of us who work in food and agriculture in South Asia are really appreciating. So thanks to everybody who made this happen today. And I do believe the conversation's probably not going to stop here, which is a sign of a good webinar. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a good evening or rest of day.
Thank you so
very
much,
much.
everyone. Thanks, Vivek. Thanks, Lauren. Thanks, Parmesh. And
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all.
thanks a lot.